Joining us this week for Radio Labyrinth Presents Interviews is a local working actor with several years of successful roles in television, film, and stage. If you've watched practically any big show in the last 15 years, then you have seen him. Shows such as Better Call Saul, The Outsider, Ozark, Lore, Good Eats, Cobra Kai, and he portrayed James Brady in the 2016 movie Killing Reagan. He's an acting teacher and an on-set acting coach and the artistic director of the Renaissance Project Theater Company with dozens of stage credits, including directing over 30 productions. His aggressive teaching style is driven by his passionate belief that every actor deserves a chance. Michael H. Cole, thank you for coming on Radio Labyrinth.
Thank you.
Hey, welcome.
I want to be like that person.
You have been in, and I recognized you instantly when Larry sent us the link, your friend Larry, and sent me the link. I'm like, I've seen him in so many things, and I started looking at your credits and everything. But before we dive into that, how long have you been doing this? And tell us about the theater and your teaching, because that's important as well.
Well, I grew up around the industry. My uncle was in an old television show called The Mod Squad, and he played Pete Cochran. And he was my dad's brother, so he's my namesake. He's Michael Charles Cole. I'm Michael Highland Cole. And I grew up at Warner Hollywood and didn't really have any passion to do it. I thought it was boring on set, why they kept on doing things over and over. The only thing that caught my attention, I was there, they were filming an episode, and I got to walk around with my pass around my neck. And I walked through, I saw a set they were shooting for Mannix, an old television show.
Yeah.
Which was the premiere of the African-American secretary who kind of had this interesting relationship with him. And then I walked past it, and I'm in this other soundstage, and they're in the process of beginning dismantling something. And I didn't know what it was until later that evening. It was Star Trek with William Shatner.
Oh,
and shooting a sequence on the bridge. That caught my attention.
Yeah.
And but my uncle wasn't too big on me getting involved in film and television, so I got involved in theater and, at a very high school age, and started performing wherever I could. I wound up doing stand-up comedy, and in the process of doing all that and trying to start my own theater, somebody saw and said, "Hey, listen, I want you to come and audition for something." So I've been doing theater, I don't know, 35, 40 years maybe. I don't know, I've stopped counting. Film and television full-time 22 or 23 years.
Dang.
And part-time maybe 35 years.
Yeah, when you were doing stand-up, was it out in California at the club?
No, here.
Oh, here. Okay. So what era of stand-up comedy was that? Like, who were you working with?
Oh, my idols were Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And they, to me, the original first 2 to 3 seasons were like the most iconic cast for me.
Absolutely.
But the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s.
So a lot of people back then were just getting started. Jay Leno, of course, he's more 70s, but Jay Leno, Seinfeld, all those guys that became ubiquitous in the 80s and 90s, they were just working comics back then.
Right.
When you were on the set of the Mod Squad, did you interact with any of the cast, or were you just kind of there watching your uncle, like Peggy Lipton and? Yeah,
Peg and it was always interesting because everyone would joke about, they're going to have a relationship.
Yeah.
And but she was from the Lipton tea family. And you are not, and he was a poor kid from Madison, Wisconsin, ran away from home, alcoholic, who wound up changing his life around and becoming this actor, but didn't have the reputation, so they would never, but they became very, very close friends. Clarence, who he just lost, by the way, years ago. And whenever Bill Cosby would come into town, because he lives on the estate of Cosby and knew him from the 70s, my dad was always given front passes to see Cosby perform, and they came from Clarence. And so we were very, very close with all of them. And of course, we lost both of them now, Peggy and Clarence.
Yeah, I think her last thing was the Twin Peaks
Well, she was married to Quincy Jones.
Okay.
The producer.
Oh, that's right. Their daughter is
right.
Yeah.
And she's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, my God.
So was Peggy.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, exactly. So they're just beautiful, beautiful people, and we miss them.
And are you an artist as well? For those that aren't watching the video, there's a lovely painting behind Mr. Cole.
That actual painting is my daughter.
Okay.
But I actually went to school as a graphics designer and illustrator. And so I wound up using that. I thought I was going to use it in the advertising and marketing field, but I wound up using that to design sets and stages for the theater. And but everything from sculpting with wood to drawing illustrations, something like for your family, portraits and stuff. And my brother too, that way.
You worked on Stargirl. We had the graphic designer Shawn on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Yeah, the one thing, you always love who you get to work with, and Leah Thompson was my director, and of course, all I'm thinking about is Back to the Future,
Right.
And she was amazing. I'm Mr. Paris, the math teacher, and so not a dominant character, so I could come back as hopefully again. We'll see what happens with that.
Do you like working for the actor directors more than just a regular straight up director? I know you worked with Leah Thompson and now Jason Bateman. You worked with him a couple times.
Yes.
Did he direct your episodes of The Outsider also?
Yes, both.
Yeah.
That particular episode, he was not in those scenes that we were doing. It was me and his wife, and I was the senator there. I like working.
Right.
Yeah.
Some directors are just amazing, and they're not actors directors. I just finished doing a television series that hasn't been come out yet called Black Mafia Family, and we had block scheduling, and I got to work with this one particular director several times. She started the season and ended the season, and she had no acting chops, but Tasha was just amazing to work with and pulled stuff out of you. And yet I can then work with actor directors that can pull stuff. So it really is very dependent upon the individual. A lot of times directors don't do anything. And the reason is, well, I convinced them in the audition that they like that. Just do that. Tyler Perry is that way. He doesn't bring you on set to direct you. You're exactly where he wants you to be from the get-go. And you also have to move very fast with Tyler Perry.
He seems like a good director, or somebody that really cares about his projects and cares about the area as well. There's
no question about that. He's, the way he grew up in the lifestyle of the single mom and living out of a car, and his heart still goes to single mothers. And he is unapologetic about it. And I don't know, this is the 5th project I've worked on with him. And Mr. Perry, by the way, he's a giant of a man physically and a giant of a man spiritually. He's just a wonderful person to work for. And I wouldn't say that, thinking that, he's going to hear this and he's going to, I think everybody says it about him.
You recently worked with Lucky Yates on a production. And I've known him for about 20 some years, and he's been on Archer and a lot of different things, but what's the show Dark Alley about, if you can talk about it?
That's one of those shows where I am a dark character. Mm-hmm. I've had several like that, and I usually I'm not anymore confused, but I used to be confused. Why are you? I don't even come across that way, and yet they go, but that's exactly why we need you to do this, because you're the unexpected villain, in it, and Dark Alley has just the setting and the way that they very much did it like Adult Swim style of projects. And so that was a blast to, when you get to play and do something that's out of the box for you.
Great.
I was curious if you ever went out for any Adult Swim stuff, like Your Pretty Face Is Going to Hell used to.
Oh, many times.
Yeah.
My face is just not pretty enough, I guess. I've never booked. I've had a number of my friends book that, and several other Archer as a VO, and other shows, but no.
Do you get a lot of voiceover work? Do you work that as well, or just? I
do work it. I don't work it a lot anymore. It's not as lucrative as working in film and television, actually live in front of the camera. But I do audition for it. I did a podcast as a voiceover for a new show called Edith that just came out a month or two ago. And I am the featured role for one of the entire episodes. And I like doing it. It's very easy to do for me. And I do different voices, and I can do different character voices and accents and stuff. And so it's a different venue. I'm trying to earn a living,
right.
And that's the hard part. You can make a quick, small fortune pretty quick, but it's really hard to make a living at this.
Yeah, you have such a huge resume. So obviously people like working with you, and you know how to do it right, and continue to get work. So that's amazing. And not a lot of people can be creative. And whether you were saying earlier that you worked in fine arts or degree in college, or marketing, commercial art, and bringing that to the stage, bringing, all the set design and stuff. It has to be an amazing thing to be able to do that. And I just do radio. I'm not just knocking it. I love what I do, but I mean, I get to goof off on the radio and also do this podcast. And it's just amazing that somebody like yourself can find that niche and just continue plugging away. It's not like you're like Seinfeld money for every series you've done, but you make enough to keep going and continue working with your other passions, like coaching and acting and teaching acting.
Right. I love working with other actors and teaching them what the ins and outs of the industry, what to watch out for, how to really improve what they're doing. We're trying to really build a good company of actors here in the South, Georgia specifically. So more and more productions will be willing to come here. So you could say it's selfish, my teaching, because it ultimately helps me.
Right.
But I've always been, even before the tax incentives, I was always doing coaching and kind of just walking them through the same school. Nothing came easy to me. Everything was a school of hard knocks. And so I think it makes me a better teacher.
Yeah, that's the best person to learn from. Plug your school so people can find it if they're interested.
Well, believe it or not, it would be, look me up on Facebook. I can give you my email address. That's the other thing. I don't promote what I do.
Oh, okay.
It's by word of mouth. Michael H. Cole. You can look me up. You got to put the H in there. You're going to find somebody else. And I'd love to have somebody Facebook me and say, hey, I'm interested, and I can send them the information.
Right.
I have a PDF flyer, but I don't have a website. I don't like having a lot of people in my classes. Sometimes I'll only have 4 or 5. And I love that because I can really give them the attention they need. A little bit of money, but not a lot. Some people go, why do you keep doing this? Because I love doing it. And if I could do it for free, I would do it for free if I was making it.
Now, you're listed in so many, looking at your IMDb, you have so many credits that are listed there. Now, not all of them are listed as acting. It does say, additional, like on Guardians of the Galaxy. What was your role there?
I'm an on-set acting coach as well. And so I had to, quote, audition for the very first one was Teen Wolf when it was here. And I actually booked a role on it. And then I was brought in by the casting director with the producers, Russell Mulcahy and Scott, who was the creator of Criminal Minds. And so they already knew me, but they had been interviewing a bunch of others. And so I told them, well, what I would do if you, and they said, okay, we'll hire you. And so that was the very first time that I ever was an on-set coach. Guardians of the Galaxy was the same thing. They interviewed a bunch of different people, and I'd already had several shows, Fifth Wave, Tyler Perry, Medea Christmas, that I also worked as an on-set coach for, and I also was in that as well. And so Guardians needed somebody to work on with the Ravengers. And in this instance with Guardians 2, the Ravengers were the centerpiece of the story. So they brought in about 125 guys that none of them had even extras experience, and they ranged from Asian guys that were 5'1", but kung fu experts, to a retired basketball player who was Korean who was 7'2". To Hell's Angels, to military. These guys, it was just a huge array. And so I had to do what we called a boot camp with them for a week. And then I helped stage some scenes with James on set for them, and went from there. And then after that, I started getting called in for working with Marvel. And so I did Black Widow that just came out. I worked with the children for that's her origin story. And then I did, the last one I did was WandaVision, which I really loved doing that. And that was working with the 2 boys, Billy and Tommy, for about a month.
Oh, they're kids?
Nice.
Billy and Tommy were kids in that instance.
Yeah.
I worked with adults too.
Yeah, but they were great. That was a fun show.
It really was. It was a joy to be there and working with Marvel.
And it's got to be tough, like people that don't have any acting experience at all, especially on a movie set or a television production. They wouldn't know, don't do this because the camera can't see it. You show them just the basics of how to.
Right. And that's how it was with the Ravengers.
Right.
So a lot of it was just first etiquette, how to function on a set, and let me see what you can do if I can pre-stage you and what does it mean to go to first position, second position, bring it down. Let's go ahead. We're going to, blah, 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 blah. And the two boys in Wandavision already really did have experience. Jackson was on a very successful Canadian show called Lock and Key, and wound up shooting a second season of it. And he was the only child on that show, on that set. And Jet had a pretty successful career too of booking quite a number of projects. And so, but they had issues. Marvel is very strict on their security. I mean, hyper strict. Everyone is, Stranger Things included, Walking Dead and all that. But they had never worked with two children within an episodic, which is very different than two children in a feature, because you can block out when they're going to be doing their work and you really already know where everything is going. But in episodic, scripts are being written as you're going. So what was happening with the boys is that they were often not getting their scripts until a couple hours before they started shooting. And for an adult, they can scramble and they can put that together, but it intimidated the boys so much that, it really affected what they were doing. So they knew I had just finished doing Black Widow, and they said, hey, listen, you just work with children of this. Can you come in? And so I came in, and within, one day we were able to fix the issue. I became their go-between with the showrunner and talking them through things so I get them as prepped as we possibly could. And then if a change occurred, I was right there on set with them to navigate them through those changes. But they already had a tremendous skill set, right? And it was such a novel show as to how they, bounced in and out of all the memories that she had as she was a child. And so it was a blessing to be a part of WandaVision.
How did they relate to you as a stranger just coming in to show them? I mean, obviously they had a professional background, so they knew you were there to help, and they didn't find you to be somebody who was telling them what to do, or were you more of like a friend and a helper?
Friend. Well, I have 4 kids. I worked with kids most of my life in productions and plays, and so it was a very natural transition for me. And so we struck up a friendship literally within hours. And I remember one of the first things we did was I said, hey guys, I know they just told you we got to study some lines, but we got time. Let's go play ping pong.
Cool.
So
that relaxes them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was a routine that they wanted to do all the time.
Good.
So no ping pong right now. But and I would play with them, and so they were great kids.
Now, what advice would you give for someone who on the opposite end, who's, in their late 40s, maybe going into their 50s and are looking to get into the business? I mean, is there a time frame set? Is it something that can be accomplished with the right training or with the right
Absolutely.
mindset?
All you have to do is look online to how many successful, and again, we can't say, I want to be able to win an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
These actors are not out about looking for that. They just want to be storytellers. And if an Oscar or accolades, Emmys or whatever happen, it happens. But, if you look at Samuel Jackson, who didn't really get into his career until his 40s, I'm forgetting his name, the Hawkeye.
Alan Alda?
No, Hawkeye.
Jeremy Renner.
Jeremy Renner. I worked with him on it was the show about the actual true life story about the reporter who was uncovering the cocaine dynamics with it. Oh. And it was just, amazing. He started late. I mean, Hurt Locker was one of his first projects. The one thing that you can guarantee, the older you get, the less people you're having to compete against. I mean, that's morbid, but
right.
Well, they wind up wanting to retire. I'm not saying necessarily die, but they retire. They want to spend their life doing something else. They're tired of and for me, I absolutely love being on set, be it film or television.
Do you find it that a person with age as behind them has an ability to get to places that maybe a young person doesn't? I mean, as far as use life experience to promote their acting or to better their acting skill?
That's a good question. I would say I don't know. And the reason I'd say that is if I looked at Jet from WandaVision, he has no life experiences, but yet his ability to, we would call it have an old soul in him.
Okay.
Was amazing. And yet I will, when I was shooting Better Call Saul, we had an older actress who was probably close to 70 who played the archaeologist who's digging stuff up. and she was and had a resume, and yet there was this feeling of pressure because of the show we were doing. And she just kept on messing up everything she was saying. And it took many takes to get some very simple lines out of her. And I could tell it was frustrating her, and it was frustrating, the director. So that's an example. She should have had the experience and been easily able to do it. But for whatever reason, it could have just been life circumstances for her. And on another show, she probably would just do wonderful. So I guess the reason I'm saying it that way is I have come not to prejudge anyone, because I can be proven wrong so many times and go, wow, this is cathartic. How the heck did you do that?
Right.
And actors love that.
And how the heck did you get on Better Call Saul? Because that's not shot here in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's Albuquerque,
Yeah.
and, which, by the way, is gorgeous. If you can ever go to I've never seen anything that flat for that far of a distance, and you could see the distance where you're thinking, oh, those mountains must be what, 10, 15 miles away. And they go, no, they're 35 miles away. Mm-hmm. No way, this is weird. I auditioned for it here. And they audition, of course, actors out of LA, Chicago, Albuquerque, and New York, and Canada, and anywhere they can audition anybody. And I just was very blessed that they liked my take on it was actually just one scene. We wound up doing 3 scenes with it, and I was just, wow,
yeah,
this is cool. And to have time, I know I love Bob. He was awesome, and I had so many conversations with him about writing, because he's a writer.
Yeah,
he wrote for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was an actual character that he wrote that they were referring his character for Breaking Bad, and they thought it was going to be a one-off. And it turned into a heavy reoccurring character to a series regular to now he has his own show. And he couldn't wait till he would finish shooting episodes so that he could continue working on his film scripts and other projects that he was doing. But believe it or not, it wasn't him. It was Barry Corbin.
Really?
War Games.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
General, I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it would work. Let's have the boy go to the computer.
Get the president on the horn, get the birds in the air.
Right,
take us to DEFCON 2.
Remember Northern Exposure?
Yeah. How about Urban Cowboy? A plastic.
Right, exactly. And so he actually I spent most of my time just talking and just enjoying his presence for that week. And then at the end, his wife brought me, they got one of the photos of him in his general's outfit from War Games, and he signed it for me and put this on a spark plug. And I asked him, I said, so how did it feel to say that line? He would say that line, I made up that line. What are you talking about? He said, well, they just knew that I had to say something to get the kid to go to Whopper and work on the computer. And he said, and I remembered that on the ranch we were working on, me and my cousin were trying to get this truck started, and I dared him. I said, what if you pissed on the spark plug? So he climbed up on the radiator, pissed on the spark plug, and shocked him right in the private.
Even for Christ's sake.
Don't let him. He's played it before.
He can hardly do worse than you have, John.
2 numbers.
God damn it, I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it'd do any good. Let the boy in there, Major.
And I went, that is awesome.
That's great.
And so I used it. And then the writers claimed that they created it.
No way. We just got the origin of one of the best lines of any movie made in the 1980s.
There you go.
That is awesome. Thank you. We love Barry Corbin, and when those episodes started, I instantly knew the voice, but it took me a few minutes. Mm-hmm. I don't like to go if I can't figure it out right away. I don't like to immediately jump on Google and get the answer. I try to keep my brain sharp and try to figure it out. And eventually I figured it out that it was him, but I was like, man, he looks great. I didn't know how old he was. I was like, he's been around.
Oh, yeah. He was in his early 80s.
Yeah. And still with it, still able to act. That's amazing.
Texas accent of his.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
I just, that movie. So you're big on the early, that movie has made an impression on you. You would have been what, 18, 20 when that came out?
Yeah.
How about Karate Kid? Were you into that, or was it too juvenile?
Oh, I was into the original. Shows and all that, and ironically, I play the younger version of Ed Asner. They were looking for a person who could play the alter younger version of him. And at first they were just going to shoot me from the back of my head, but the director shot me from in front, and they said, well, if we just use the back of your head, we're going to bring you back for another character. And the producers went, no, we liked him. So they wound up using me for that. And that was, I didn't get to meet Ed, but that would have been another iconic, individual. From Tyler Moore to Elf. To me.
Thinking back when that movie came out, was it 1984? The original Karate Kid came out in 1984, and now you've been on Cobra Kai, which is that's 40 years, almost 40 years later.
Right.
Isn't it amazing? It's not a bookend because you're not anywhere near done, but it's just, it must be cool to see those people who were super big icons in 1984, and just to see them now doing the same roles and then keeping the show going. I love that they brought that show back because they did it right. I think.
It was.
Are you Team Johnny or Team Daniel?
Yeah, there you go. Well, they're casting right now for a show that's a reboot of the first episode of The Waltons.
Are you kidding?
Wow.
Yeah, here.
Set when?
At the Christmas special. I think it was either. It was not the Waltons Christmas. It was called something else with a gift.
Christmas or something on Walton. The first, I just know the first episode of the Waltons, the pilot or the movie was super depressing.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Yes.
And we thought the dad was never going to show up, and and they were running out of food, and it was this blizzard. What a horrible Christmas to remember.
Yeah.
They're starting.
They pulled it out in the end. So I'm hoping to be able to get an opportunity to audition for that too.
Are you going for John Boy or Pa or?
Probably one of the farmers that live in the area that work at the mill.
Is it going to be set in the same era?
I don't know that. They're not releasing a lot of the information. All I just know is that they're doing the audition, and it's based on the first episode.
Now that would have been the first place most of us saw John Ritter, because he played the preacher.
Yes, very good. Absolutely, very young John Ritter.
Jason Bateman too.
Jason Bateman was on the Waltons.
Child actor on the. Well, that was Little.
That was Little House on the Prairie.
Little House on the Prairie. He was a child actor.
I was more into that because it wasn't on as late, and it was in more places in syndication. TBS carried it all the time, so I watched it all the time. I want to hear. Yes. You could hear their hearts beating because of the microphone placement. So you always hear.
Yep.
So let me ask you this: if somebody, Dustin kind of touched on this, but so if someone like myself or someone my age or someone who does a podcast, and I have one more thought about podcasts based on something you said earlier, but wanted to get in with acting, just send you an email and talk about, why and how do you make your decision and whether or not you'd let them get in your class?
Right. I think the first thing is that they have to, and I like to say, get with somebody who walks with a limp. Mm-hmm. You want to see somebody who's battle tested and is currently acting. There are other actors, there's other studios that I highly recommend people go to. What I don't recommend is them to start going to talent agents.
Okay.
There are a number of talent agencies here in Atlanta that are just, blood's in the water and the sharks are out, and they're willing, they'll charge you money. There should be no money exchanged at all to sign with a talent agency. If somebody wants you to, can I have a nickel to buy a piece of gum in our gum machine? Run away. There should be no money exchange, not to get on their website, not to do a signing fee, nothing, not to use their headshot photographer, not to take their classes. Those are all scams.
It's all to make money.
It's all to make money. And there are a wonderful group of talent agents that exist here in Atlanta. And there's nothing better than having a good, reputable talent agency that's there to work with you. And I could easily help point them in the right direction. There are other ways to go, but before getting a talent agent, hook up with an actor. And there's quite a few of them that are here that are more than willing. This is what they love. They love to do it just as much as I am. Not the only one. Mm-hmm. To help and get people into this, just simply because I've seen way too many get gouged for thousands of dollars and nothing happens.
Thank you for answering that. And then I thought about it for years and years. And I think in a little while, once things settle down, I'll be able to start doing that. All I do perform on radio is I'm better as somebody else. I'm better being a character, diving into a character, and it's all improv. So I don't know if I'd be able to do it, but I always wanted to try. So, we've talked about it in the house before, and I'm going to try it eventually. Because
give me a ring and I'll point you in some right directions.
Yeah, definitely. And then my other thing is I love that you talked about you were on a scripted podcast. And what I like about that is it's kind of bringing back the old school radio serial, but in a podcast form. But I love being able to hear a story with the sound effects and the voice acting and the characters. That's something that was lost for a long time, and now it's back. So I think that's
well, cool. I love how somebody once put it, the audience can build a much better set in their imagination.
Yeah.
You could ever present to them. And I actually remember recording one of the first podcasts was in the early 70s. I had an old cassette tape recorder. And I put it next to my little AM/FM radio that was, no bigger than this. And I was playing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein that they were doing as a group here in Atlanta.
Wow.
That was doing it as a radio broadcast. And so I got a particular time of the evening, I would always get up and I'd try to make sure it was on the same cassette and it wasn't backed up because then I'd erase it. And I would record that. And I just absolutely fell in love, And then there's stuff all the way going back to the 40s.
Yeah.
The shadow knows. Even you, without knowing, can commit murder.
Chicken Man. He's everywhere. He's everywhere.
Yeah. Very cool.
Dr. Demento was one of my first.
Oh, yes.
And I actually got on the show. I called in. He played my request, and I found the audio of that on a news group. Somebody posted it for me back in the.
You got on Dr. Demento?
Yeah, I called in and left a message, and he played my song, and then I said my voice hadn't changed yet, so it's great. Hi, Dr. Ray.
They have heard you do that and not know it.
Yeah, I could send it to you.
A fan. That's cool.
I loved it. And then when I started college radio, I contacted Westwood One and I said, hey, do you do college radio? Because the market didn't have the show. And they said, yes. So not only did I get Dr. Demento, I got Elliot Mintz's Lost Linen tapes. So I'd play those every Sunday. And you just had to omit the commercials. And then I kept all the records, but they're gone now. But I wish I still had them.
Man, that's awesome.
And then one time, I'm just such a big fan of Demento. I went to his 20th anniversary. He did a tour and I went and watched him and I was like all excited to meet him. I said, hey, how do I get to do an internship? And he goes, you'll have to ask Westwood One. And then he turned away from me and I was crestfallen for about 2 minutes, but I still got to meet Dr. Demento.
Yeah, exactly. That's iconic.
Yes, I loved it. And Bob Odenkirk did him on Mr. Show, except his name is Dr. Something we can't say anymore.
Right, exactly.
As an acting teacher, do you have opinions on shows like the Kominsky Method or Barry that feature acting schools?
Yeah, well, I was funny you bringing up the Kominsky Method because Michael Douglas and Adam Arkin, because I said, did the writers of Gracie and Frankie decide to do a male version? Because it so feels. Because they bring in guest star actors, big headliner actors to play these one-day roles, Danny DeVito is the oncologist, Douglas, and their struggles with their marriages and their struggles with their lives or the lack of marriage, which is Frankie and Grace, with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, and so I don't know, it's fascinating when they do the acting classes. Because I've been in those. And it's nice because I believe in a lot of the methods that Michael Douglas himself espouses, that his own training is. And so I like how he breaks out of that traditional acting class mode and in something that's more in the moment. And he likes to bring his actors into that because that's his life and his character's life is disconnection with the moment. But yeah, I liked them both. That's cool.
It seems like he's struggling to keep everybody coming to the class, and and in both cases where even on Barry, they're everybody's got to pay and they have to show up,
and it's like the classes become therapy.
Right.
Do you ever watch The Sopranos?
Oh yeah, and God rest his soul.
Definitely, God rest his soul. I'm every time I listen to the Talking Sopranos podcast, and I still rewatch the show because it was just
right.
The episode where Christopher Moltisanti goes to the acting class and they're doing the voice lessons, and he punches the guy because he's so emotional from doing Streetcar. But that's another great portrayal in a different way. But those guys, like Michael Imperioli talks about acting classes and people who have influenced him on that show, which is why I plug it. It's a fun show. They talk about The Sopranos, but he's an interesting guy. He's very intense about his acting and the people who mentored him into the business.
Right. Absolutely.
I'll tell everybody where they can find you if they're interested in getting in touch with you for discussions, and plug your social media again. And
sure. The two things, obviously, the easiest is you can Facebook me, Michael H. Cole, H for Highland, Michael H. Cole on Facebook. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me. But if they want to email me, I'll give them my email address right now. If you want to produce it, it's my name in reverse. It's ColeMichaelH@gmail.com. Michael H. Cole was already taken. I had to do ColeMichaelH, my middle initial, @gmail.com. And if I can't, sometimes I'll have actors that I've been working with that maybe I'm not the right teacher for them, or it's just there's some dynamics that I'm not dealing with. And so I have enough of a relationship with several of the other studios, and I refer them to the other studios and go, I think you need to work on this dynamic. You know, whether it's an improv skill or script analysis or the kinetics of acting, you know, that kind of thing. And because mine really focuses a lot on the on-camera audition prep, which actors, you know, but during COVID, you know, there's no in-person face-to-face auditions. You know, I booked Black Mafia Family as a guest star reoccurring role in half the season from tape. They never met me live. And that's been difficult for a lot of it, but they've found it very financially equitable. Mm-hmm. They spend less money if they know how to screen actors better through virtual. But then it puts the onus on the actor to become much better at they have to now become like a director and a producer and a lighting and audio, because they have to have all these dynamics working for them so that their tapes look professional. And so I try to help navigate them through that and show them what to do for the actual audition process itself and getting their foot in that door.
Awesome. Dustin, do you have any other question?
Do you have anything coming up that we can look for you?
Yes, that's what was going.
Okay. Well, I can bring up two. I can't bring up one.
Okay.
Because of security issues. Black Mafia Family, which is based on a true story of two boys in 1986 Chicago who started a drug dealing group that ultimately, and they called it BMF, Black Mafia Family, became the largest organized crime group that surpassed the Italian Mafia. And yet historically it was ignored. And so these people so the very first season is all about them in 10th grade when one of them is in 10th grade, the others dropped out of high school. You get the behind the scenes of the struggles of these kids and how it happens. And so you get it's not just, you know, hey, we're trying to glorify these guys who started a mafia. You're beginning to see the struggles with their families, with livelihood in Chicago at that time. And so I play a wonderful role in that. That's coming out this fall. And I'm very proud of the work with that. Then I did a show called Bandit, which stars Mel Gibson, and had a couple of scenes in that. That was fun. Shot that in South Georgia.
What's that about?
I believe it's also based on a true story of a crime spree of an individual who found a way to rob banks that were in like malls. You know, a mall or a grocery store would have its built-in bank there. Uh-huh. And it was almost comical how this person was able to get away with it, and over 700 banks. Wow. And yet people don't, you know, how many bank robbers can tout that that's how many banks they've robbed.
Right.
And so it's a really wonderful story, fun. And yet, you know, the cop chasing, you know, person story thing. And so that was pretty cool. And then
with Mel Gibson, who is a pretty damn good actor.
And then I do have my episode, the episode for The Oval with Tyler Perry comes out, where I play a Navy captain at the White House and have to deal with some issues where they're kind of breaking the law about launching a drone airstrike on American soil, which you're not supposed to do.
No.
So that'll be coming out along with the other, which I can talk to you about maybe this fall.
Well, that means you might come back on. Yeah.
There you go. That'd be cool.
We'd love to have you back on.
It'd be a lot of fun.
So thank you to your friend Larry for connecting us. Larry Mitchell. I wanted to give him a shout out because it's really cool. He's like, hey, I think you guys would like each other. And it
Right.
turns out that from this end, I mean, I don't know. No, I'm kidding. We really loved having you on, man. And
by the way, thank you, Larry. Your music. Yeah, I've known Larry for quite a long time. Probably 25 years.
dang. Yeah,
And when your project becomes not secret anymore and you want to promote it, you're welcome to come back on.
Absolutely. Would love
for
to
sure.
do that. This was a blast.
thanks for coming. And everybody, if you're interested in seeing Michael H. Cole in action, just go Google his name and you'll find all of his roles. And you'll go, oh my God, yeah, I've seen him.
Right. They're all there.
Yes. Thank you, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
You too. Peace.
Thanks, Mike.